Okay, Connor. So for this part, I have picked a guy who in the big leagues has hit 40 plus home runs over the last couple years. So that guy being Edwin Encarnacion. Let me get him to his stance. Okay, obviously his stance is different than yours. But the one thing that he does similar to what you do, gets his hands pretty far back, just like you do, and uses his legs extremely well, just like you do. So the first part of this, what I want you to look at is where his knees are. Okay, so and I guess more so where his back knee's at. We look at your back knee and where it's at. We're getting close, obviously, to pointing that thing out. Okay, so that's the first part when we're looking at the back knee. Second part being this foot. Okay, so see how yours is pointing out. See how his is pointing more forward ahead. Okay, so that's a simple adjustment, two simple adjustments that we can make. Now, second part of this is going to be we're going to look at what his knee does. Okay, so if I'm drawing this line from the middle of his knee to the ground, and we're drawing it from the middle of his foot up. Okay, so ultimately we wouldn't want that knee to go past this line right there. Okay, so we'll do that with you too. So your knee there, and we wouldn't want your knee to get outside of that line. Okay, so let's watch him first and see where his knee, what his knee does. Boom. Stays inside of it, almost stays inside of that line there on the right. Now, how was he able to do this? Well, a couple ways. First way is he loads everything up right here on this back hip. Okay, so he's feeling a lot of tension at this point in the back hip because that keeps everything kind of coiled up. The tighter we can coil that back hip, the more it's going to explode loose and explode open whenever we do unload onto the baseball. Second part of it is he's pinching everything right here. Okay, so from his knee to his groin, the middle part, the inside part of his back thigh, he's doing a tremendous job of pinching that thing in, and what it does is as he pinches, it keeps it right inside of that back foot. So erase those two. Now let's go back to it. Does that knee ever get outside? No, no chance. Okay, so let's go back to yours over here. Does the knee ever get outside of it? We're going to sneak through, we're going to roll through, and we go back. And right about there, I think we're getting to the point where, yeah, I think you can see it. Where's that back knee at? It's all the way on the outside of it, okay? So what that does is it's okay off the tee. We can still hit balls off the tee because that ball's not moving towards us. But as we start getting something that's facing us and coming towards us, and it's coming in at 90 plus miles per hour, or whatever is hard for you guys at your age, it becomes a little bit more difficult to catch up and be on time, okay? So let me get you back to a post-stride position. Post-stride position being right there. Now, let me erase all of these lines. Now we're looking at the post-stride position where we're at. So he, if we look at it, the distance between his feet has gained a little bit more distance than you, okay? And so what happens then is for you to try to gain some distance and get your hips going, what do? Well, let's look at this front foot. You kind of open everything up, okay? And as that opens, and this opens. Okay, now when we look at his, we look at this front hip, that thing's still pretty closed. This front knee, still locked on the inside part of our foot, and that foot is basically at that angle right there. So we look at those and draw some comparisons. I think you can see that he's still loaded up. He's behind that front leg just a little bit more as opposed to yours, where everything's starting to leak. As it leaks, we lose bat speed, and we give ourselves a tougher chance to hit that pitch on the outside part of the plate. So that's one thing that you can change. Now, here's what I want you to look at that's very similar to his. Okay, we roll through this. Well, actually, we can backtrack. Look at so we talked about connection, everything getting back to the back hip at the same time. Okay, rewind that a little bit. So the hands and elbow to the back at the same time. Look at him, the hands and elbow to the back at the same time. So beautiful. You're doing the Exact same thing that a big leaguer does, so we aren't far off there. Now, let's look at the point of contact and what that back knee's doing and what that back leg's doing. Boom. You almost, Connor, almost, and I think you might actually, get more out of that back leg than Edwin Encarnacion does. Okay, so that's very encouraging. Now, here's the thing. We're getting a lot out of this, but we're almost pushing over our front leg. Okay, so let's look at it. What's our front leg doing? Well, it's coming off the ground and rolling a little bit because we don't have enough spacing between our feet. Now, when we look at his, look at this front foot right here. Okay, it's still pretty close and it's locked in on the ground. And what that does is allows us to hit up against this front leg. Okay, and so when you get tree trunk legs like this, and you look at that front thigh, my goodness. And so if he was pushing out over that front foot and he wasn't utilizing that giant thigh, then he wouldn't get as much out of it as he could. So as you get bigger and as you get giant thighs like that, you need to utilize those a little bit more. Okay, so that's one piece and one bit to be able to do it. Other than that, though, Connor, I really like your swing. I think there's some real potential in there to create some bat speed. You got a great bat path. I really like that. So just some little tinkering things that you can do in your stance, because I like your rhythm that you have. You do a good job of getting your hands back. All that stuff I like. So keep working. I like where you're going. Continue to move in that direction. And if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to have somebody email me and ask me, or you can come by and stop and talk to me. I'd love to talk to you about it. Thank you so much again, Connor.